They have not dealt so with any nation. Giving all praise to Yahweh Shem Yahushua B'Shem Rakakwadash. And this is from Psalms 147 verses 19 and 20. It said, He showeth his word unto Yahweh. Let's see what it says about Yahweh. Yahweh is in English Jacob, heel holder or supplanter, son of Isaac, grandson of Abraham, and father of the 12 patriarchs of the tribes of Israel. So, to get the understanding, it says, 19 verse again, Psalms 147, He showeth his word unto, and I'm going to read it verbatim, Jacob, which we know there's no J in the Hebrew. The letter J came about in, we used to say 1600s. Actually, I did a video on that subject, the letter J, and it actually came about in, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm off, it was 1524 if I'm not mistaken. And I even mentioned the man behind the extension of the letter or the character I. So that was in 1524 if I'm not mistaken. So that's why I say Yahweh. It said he showeth his word unto Yahweh, or Jacob. So I just looked up the word Jacob in the blue letter, and it says the son of Isaac, the grandson of Abraham, and father of the patriarchs, which are the Israelites. So when it says he showeth his word unto Yahweh, it's not talking about Yahweh himself, because he long died. So it's talking about the sons that came out of Yahweh. It says his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. When did the Lord give his statutes and his judgments unto Israel? He used Moses. Yahweh was long dead. So we know when it says Yahweh or Jacob, we know it's talking about the Israelites. It says he have not dealt so with any nation. So we know it's not talking about, in this verse, it's damn sure ain't talking about Yahweh. It's talking about the people that came out of Yahweh or Jacob. He have not dealt so with any nation. So you can understand, you would put in any other nation. And as for his judgments, they, the other nations, have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. So what I did was, I was watching this video that was put up by Holy Bible Defenders. And these are very good videos. You know, I get them in my notification. I watch them because they're straight and to the point. And when I saw the video, and then there was another video with another pass or whatever, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna waste my time. This is so easy. But I came back a couple hours later and I said, you know what? Let me do a little video on this. You know, this video is entitled Pastor David LYNN, and if I remember, I'll leave it in the description box. I'll try my hardest to remember. But anyway, if I don't, what you got to do is you got to subscribe to a Holy Bible Defenders, and then subscribe to them and get the notifications. Hit the notification bell. So the name of the video is Pastor David LYNN Hijack Israelite Scripture to Keep Christianity Alive. And see, in reality, these Christians are really losing sleep. They're not getting good night's sleep because they're trying to find loopholes or ways to get the other nations up in there. All right. Now, if the other nations can make it, we as Israelites, we'd have to be honest and say, yeah, no other nations can make it. If there's scriptures, there's no scriptures on it. I hate to disappoint your gods. You know? And that's from the movie Blood In, Blood Out with a Big Al talking to a Jake, because the Jake wanted a pork chop. And he said, I hate to disappoint your gods, bro, but we run out. Anyway, you can watch that movie. I'm pretty sure you saw it. Anyway, I'll read the title again. Pastor David LYNN Hijack Israelite Scripture to Keep Christianity Alive. And that's a very good title because it pretty much says it all. You know, when you watch this video, it basically the title is the perfect title for this video because he's trying to keep Edomites and Moab. Well, really, they don't give a damn about Arabs, East Indians. They really love. They're not concerned about the other nations making it. What they're concerned about is Esau making it, which they go around and say, "Oh, white people are not Edomites." And I was thinking about Esau and the Edomites. Oh, you know how you just ponder in your mind, and I'm saying, how can you read the scriptures on Esau or the Edomites and not come to the realization that that's the so-called white man? Who else does it fit on the planet Earth? Well, it's the slick thing that they do. Oh, he was done away with. We don't know where he is. So who's it? Oh, he also mentions, Pastor David LYNN mentions the Apocrypha. He said, those of you that are fans of the Apocrypha, well, you're supposed to be a fan of the Apocrypha because it's part of the word of the Most High. When you go back to the original King James, as High Priest Ariel would say, if you go back to the original King James, the Apocrypha, the book of Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2, how do you think these so-called Jews keep the Hanukkah? Because it's not, Hanukkah is not in the scriptures, it's in the Apocrypha. It's in the book, in the first and second Maccabees. Now there's also a third and fourth Maccabees, and I have read some passages from the third and the fourth chapters of Maccabees. So let's just listen to this individual right here.
From the law. So if you're a Hebrew today, if you're a Christian today, you need to settle it in your mind. Do you believe the Bible 100%? If you're a fan of the Apocrypha in the book of Judith, chapter 14 and 10, we see that Achior, a Gentile, saw all that the God of Israel had done, believed in God greatly, and circumcised the flesh of his foreskin, and joined unto the house of Israel until this day. And we also see that Abraham married Keturah and Hagar. And how do I know that's important? You might be saying, well, it's the seed that's important. But 1 Peter chapter 3 says, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge, because they are fellow heirs of the same gift.
Talking about Israelite women, not talking about heathens. All right? Keturah and Haggai, they're going into slavery. So let me give you this. Let me go to the scripture right here. Let me get the scripture. Okay, Judith 14 verse 10 in the Apocrypha. It says, and when Achior, and I believe he was an Ammonite, let me go. Yeah, he was an Ammonite. When you go to the 5th verse, it says, "But before ye do these things, call me Achior the Ammonite, that he may see and know him that despise the house of Israel, and that sent him to us as it were to his death." I mean, you can read the whole chapter, which I'm not going to do. You can read that. I'm going to leave that up to y'all. And this is the story of Holofernes. And the story of Judith, or Yahweh, which was known as, during that time, as the most beautiful Israelite woman whose husband died of a heat stroke. When you read I hadn't read this in a long time, but he had died of a heat stroke. He was out there on the top of a roof building something, and it was hot, and the sun, the heat hit his head, and he just collapsed and died. And she never married again. And she was set up to sort of seduce Holofernes, which he was a general of the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar, and she, got him woozy, got him drunk and all that, and when he laid down, she had chopped his head off and put it in a basket, brought it back to the captains and the generals, the Israelites, the heads of the Israel. And when they saw this guy's head, they put it up on the wall, and that gave them spirit to fight against this other nation. So when this Ammonite saw that, he saw the true power of Israel. He said, "Man, I want to become an Israelite too. I want to keep the laws, circumcise myself." But it doesn't mean that he is going to receive the blessings, because even Antiochus Epiphanes, that wicked root, when the Most High gave him that sore disease, guess what he started doing? He started praising the Most High and asking for forgiveness. Did the Most High turn around and forgive him? No. Why? Because he was of another nation. Now, when you read the history of the accounts of David and the different kings, we had good dealings with these other nations because we dealt with trade, but they didn't receive any of our blessings. So let me read the 10th verse. So you don't have to read the story. I just gave you the story in a nutshell. But if you find in your leisure, which by the way, leisure doesn't mean to lay back and watch TV. Leisure means from the word ledger, which means to read. Anyway, it says in Yahweh chapter 14, verse 10, it says, "And when Achior the Ammonite had seen all that the Most High of Israel had done, he believed in the Most High greatly." Why did he believe in the Most High greatly? Out of fear. "And circumcised the flesh of his foreskin, and was joined unto the house of Israel unto this day." Well, guess what? He got old and he died. So now when he comes back in the kingdom, he's going to be a slave. He's going to be an Ammonite that's under Israel. He's not going to receive the blessings. See, ultimately, the nations are going to receive blessings because they're going to learn the law, statutes, and commandments, and they're going to be placed in their land, and we're going to judge over them. Any situation come up with other nations, we're going to judge the matter. But they're going to be under us forever, and they're going to do what we tell them to do. It tells you in I Isaiah the 60th chapter, that they're going to bring in the forces of the Gentiles. Isaiah 60, Isaiah 49, Isaiah 61. And some of the nations we're not going to be too hard on, but others we're going to be hard on, like the Edomites. We're going to be hard on them because of their wickedness. So now let's come back to, like I said, I didn't want to, do this, but I said, let me go ahead and do it. So now let's listen on.
Of salvation. Now, Zechariah, the other prophets, foretold of a day when all nations would be joined unto the Lord. Zechariah chapter 12, 11, or even Mark chapter 11.
Now he you notice he just lied. I caught his ass in a lie because it doesn't say nothing. Let me let you listen to it again.
Same gift of salvation. Now, Zechariah and Hagar, and how do I know that's important? You might be saying, well, it's the seed that's important, but 1 Peter chapter 3 says how...
Now, if you understood Hagar and what she went through and the reason why she went into, fled into the wilderness with her son, Yashmai Allah, Ishmael, is because she was getting her ass beat every day by Sarah. Sarah was sticking her leg out. She was. I'm not telling you word for word what exactly happened, but Sarah was not giving her dirty looks. When Hagar wasn't looking, she was throwing shit, popping her in the head, kicking her. You know how you kick somebody in the back and they kind of trip down, or she's walking by to serve food, and Sarah would stick her leg out and she would fall, then she would push it down, she threw food at her. Now, I'm not saying those events happened like I got in the time machine, but she was beating her, she was smacking the shit out of her, man. Because somebody giving you dirty looks is not going to make you run out into goddamn wilderness with a young child. And it was because of that hate of the fact that because a woman wants to have a child, the reason why Abraham went in unto Sarah's handmaiden, which is a slave, a woman slave, is because she couldn't bear children at that time, and the Most High opened up a womb, and that was all part of an act of faith. When you go into the whole history, what does the word Isaac mean? It's yatazakak, which means laughter. When you read the account, when the Lord through the angels, it was the three men, it was the Lord and two of the angels, and when it was told to Abraham that he would have a child through Sarah, Sarah laughed within herself, and the angels the Lord and the angel were able to read her mind, and she laughed, and then she said, "Why did you laugh?" And then she said, "I didn't laugh," but she did laugh. She didn't know she was dealing with the power of the angels, which can read thoughts. So he said, because you laughed, you're gonna call that son Laughter. That's his name. His name is going to be Laughter, which was a nomen, a name sign, so you can understand. So let's listen to some more.
Husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge.
It ain't talking about concubines and slaves or secondary wives. You're going to deal with your wives one way, which are Israelites, and you're going to deal with your concubines in a different way. And we are going to have concubines in the kingdom of the other nations.
Because they are fellow heirs of the same...
See how this black devil snuck that in? Because they are fellow heirs. No, they're not fellow heirs. They're heathen. They're heathen. The fellow heir.
Until this day. And we also see that Abraham married Keturah and Hagar. And how do I know that this?
He didn't marry them. He went into them to have children. All right. You can say, well, you can use the word wife because that's in Deuteronomy, 21:10. If you overtake another nation, you see a woman that you desire, you can take her and pop her and have children with her. There's accounts of great Israelites that had children with women of the other nations. Hagar was one of them. Keturah was another. Moses' wife, I can't, it's in Numbers 12. I can't even think of her name right now. But we were talking about it the other day. Damn, I hate when that happens, but let me just bring it up. Bear me for a minute. Can't believe I forgot her name. Oh, Zipporah, I'm sorry. Zipporah. What she was a Cushite, woman of another nation, looked like Israel, but she was of another nation. So let me go back over here again. You see how this clown
saw all that the God of Israel had done, believed in God greatly, and circumcised the flesh of his foreskin, and joined unto the house of Israel until this day.
But he didn't receive the blessing to Israel. He did not become an Israelite.
And we also see that Abraham married Keturah and Hagar. And how do I know that's important? You might be saying, well, it's the seed that's important. But 1 Peter chapter 3 says, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge.
Those are Israelite women.
Because they are fellow heirs of the same.
The fellow heirs are Israelite women.
Gift of salvation. Now, Zechariah, the other prophets, foretold of a day when all nations would be joined unto the Lord. Zechariah chapter 12:11, or even Mark chapter 11:17.
Okay, Zechariah 12 and 11 didn't say anything about nations. So this guy's another thing with these Christians. See, this doesn't work because we study the scriptures, man. You say something, off, we're going to jump right on it, man. We're going to fact check it. I think I pulled it up. Did I lose it? Bear me for 1 minute. Let me see if it's right here. I'm sorry, let me go back to it. That was Zechariah. Zechariah 12. I'm going to give you the verse in a minute, but I'm going to read a couple of verses above that.
Same gift of salvation. Now, Zechariah, the other prophets, foretold of a day when all nations would be joined unto the Lord. Zechariah chapter 12:11.
So let's go to Zechariah 12:11. Zechariah 12 and 11. I had it and I lost it. And so let me bring it back up. But I'm going to read a couple of verses above that. Because if you go directly to the 11th verse, you can clearly see it's talking about Israel. But let's go above that. Matter of fact, let's go to the first verse. It says, Zechariah 12, verse 1, the burden of the word of Yahweh for Israel, saith Yahweh, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundation of the earth and formeth the spirit of man within him. Now I want to jump down to the okay, let's start at the 6th verse. Zechariah 12, verse 6. In that day will I make the governors of Yahweh like an hearth of fire among the wood. Now immediately what comes to mind is Obadiah 1, verse 18. You can read that. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall devour all the people. What people? The other nations round about, and the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. And we should start reading the scripture. Zechariah 12, verse 6. In that day, which is the kingdom, what are we going to be doing in the kingdom? I'm going to read it. Will I make the governors of Yahweh like an hearth of fire among the wood. Who's the wood? The other nations. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour, they, the Israelites, shall devour all. Let me look up the word devour. Let me go into the word devour. This is nasty language being spoken right here. Okay, devour. They shall devour. The Israelites shall devour. The word there is akal, which I already know what that means, to eat. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to eat the people. We're not going to commit the act of cannibalism. We're going to destroy them. We're going to utterly destroy them. Let me come back. Let me read this again. Zechariah 12, verse 6. In that day will I make the governors of Yahweh like an earth of fire among the wood. And that day is talking about the kingdom of heaven. So this is what we're going to be doing in the kingdom of heaven. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they, Yahweh, which is another word for Israel, because Judah, when you go back to Obadiah 1 verse 18, it speaks about the house of Jacob or Judah and the house of Ephraim coming together and burning up Esau as like wood. It says, and they shall devour all the people, who the other people? The other nations, around about on the right hand and on the left hand, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. So this is what we're going to do to the nations. And Esau, we're going to devour them. We're going to enslave them for a segment of certain amount of time. And then we're going to gather them together and we're going to dispose of them. So keep this precept in mind, brothers and sisters. Zechariah 12, verse 6. 7th verse. Yahweh also shall save the tents of Yahweh first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Yahweh. In that day shall Yahweh defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem And he that is feeble among you, among them at that day, shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as the Most High, as the angels of Yahweh before them. And the house of David, David was a Judite, Yahweh the Yah, but the house of David is all the tribes that were with David during that generation. The warriors was Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. Those were the warriors. Those were the warrior tribes in David's generation. So they're going to come back. So you're going to have Gadites from the house of David. You're going to have Benjaminites from the house of David. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations. There it goes again. Most High said he's going to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. It says, and I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is bitter, that is in bitterness for his firstborn. 11 verse, Zechariah 12 verse 11. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hedar Dreamman in the valley of Megiddo. 12 verse. And the land shall mourn, every family apart. Every family of who? The Israelites. The family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart. The family of the house of Nathan apart, and their wives apart. The family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart. The family of Shemaiah apart, which is an Israelite, and their wives apart, which are Israelites. All the families of Israel that remain, every family apart, and their wives apart. So this is talking about Israel. It's not talking about other nations. So the other nations are not going to get blessed. Go back to the 6th verse. So anyway, I think I said enough. I'm going to say shalom.